Well, hello and welcome to day number one of the EMS Leadership Summit. Today and tonight is our daily debrief. Lisa, we have had just about 10 hours, I think, of sessions being live, and we're excited to bring in our live panel here tonight.
Oh my goodness, I am so excited. Day one was a huge success. We have had so many people join today and be part of the summit. And we have a lineup of speakers with us, and we had an incredible lineup of speakers all day. Every session was really amazing. I just these speakers that we have, these world-class presenters, just so generous to provide content and allow us to really promote their their passions and what they're interested in. And it's just been a wonderful day. And I love the daily debriefs. This is my favorite part of the summit. So really happy to be here.
And let's take our folks through a quick walkthrough of our virtual exhibitor hall where they can watch over 40 different sessions every day. And so we're excited to offer that along with our sponsors. And here, if you visit emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit, you're going to be able to see all of our great sponsors. And if you hover over booth number one here, free pass holders get access to every day's sessions for 24 hours, and you can view those sessions by clicking this link. We do offer an all access pass for folks that want to upgrade for lifetime access to all the speaker sessions, CME credits, who doesn't love CME credits, and some additional MP3s of each session as well. So those are available here. And then we've got a third option here is a PDF of our sessions and speakers, the full lineup for the week, over 40 speakers from around the globe coming together this week.
Absolutely. And in that PDF, in addition to that, there are articles by several of our speakers. There's information about our sponsors and a lot of value. So, that playbook is in and of itself a very valuable resource. And I just want to say that we are going to be continuing to add bonuses over the next few weeks that All Access Pass, our VIP people, will be able to access. There'll be notes from the speakers. There's, as you said, audios already up, and there's going to be even more bonuses as the weeks go on.
And a quick shout out to one of our sponsors, the Wayfound Mental Health Group, who is offering a grand prize drawing. So if you head over to the exhibitor hall for Wayfound's booth and you scroll down here, we're going to have a spin to win. We're going to enter everybody in that grand prize drawing, and we're going to pull those names this Saturday at the daily debrief. Every day of the session, we're going to be going live right here at 6 p.m. Eastern with a lineup of our speakers.
This is fun because this is the first time we've had a grand prize. We're going to have a wheel that we are actually going to spin on Saturday. And so you definitely want to take advantage of the opportunity to be a part of that. And every booth, every one of our sponsors offers something either for free or, a discount for being a part of the EMS Leadership Summit. By the way, our fourth annual. So we just want to mention that we've been doing this for this is our fourth year, and we're so grateful for over 12,000 people so far have gone through the summits. We've had speakers every year. Some of them have returned year after year. Some of them are brand new, but everybody brings new content each year. So grateful. We just couldn't do this without our sponsors, obviously, and without our presenters. And we just want to mention this is a free opportunity. So please take advantage of that and sign up for free and enjoy the speakers.
All right. And speaking of our speakers that have been here each and every year, we can bring some of those in. First up is Chris Cebollero, who has been a serial speaker every year. Chris, welcome to the Daily Debrief.
Man, I got to say, day one, can it get any better? I mean, I was sitting here all day and I was just listening to every single, presentation, and I have a ton of notes. And I was like, man, these are just some great, and I love the different ways that people are presenting. And you could feel the different styles. And, as a speaker, one of the things that I try to gather is how are people presenting the materials? Because we always try to, change our styles of how that is. But it was a great day one, guys. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for being a part of it. And I think your presentation, as we talked about briefly last night, is such an important topic. Getting past the silos, right? The turf, if you will, that often innocently, I think people get caught up in, and people get protective, and I just think you did an amazing job of giving some ideas about how to recognize silos and how to break them down.
And I think that that's one of the big things that we've got to be able to look at inside our organizations. Silos will happen for a lot of different reasons. It could be ego. It could be that people don't really know what the vision of the organization is. It could be that they think that, that they don't like the people who work in the other areas. It could be that the leadership of the organization is poor and they're trying to protect their own little side of the organization. But let me tell you what, we all carry water and we all have to walk towards the vision every day. And I need, the dispatch department, and I need the billing department, and I need the clinical department, and and if we think we don't, our organization is not going to be successful. And that's why I love this lecture. And Lisa, this topic actually came from you. And when we were talking about what could we present, you were like, you know what, let's talk about silos. And I sat there and said, you know what, we don't talk about silos enough.
That's great.
Yeah, that was an idea that just came out of our initial conversation. And what would be valuable. I love that about you, Chris. You're always, coming to us with, what do you need? How can I serve? And I just, really admire that about you. And I want to thank you for being a returning speaker every single year and just so generous, and can't say enough about you.
It's my pleasure, Lisa, and you said it just like I wrote it, so I appreciate you following the script. But no,
well, when you pay me, I'm gonna follow the script, Chris.
But here's the thing, though: year 4, right? And I was here year 1. I kind of fell into you guys. Hey, do you want to do this? Yeah, sure, why not? I think I did 2 or 3 lectures, but year by year, the caliber of people that we're bringing in and the information that we're getting. When we think about this, and you guys know you're in this space, right? And you know this as well as I do. One of the things that we don't do for ourselves is have a plan of how we're going to get to our next level. We work really hard to get to where we're going. We work really hard to develop our skill. We work really hard to get promoted. And when we do, what happens? We stop. Where's our professional development? Where is our leadership growth coming from? And if you're not getting it from a book, and if you're not getting it from TED Talk, you're getting it from the EMS Leadership Summit. And that's why I love this event, and I'll be here every year.
Awesome.
That's great.
You heard it here first, folks.
Did I read it? Did I say it just like you wrote it?
You did. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we've got 2 more panelists to bring on, and I'd like to just remind everyone in the chat, you can ask questions. We've got an expert panel here for you, taking your questions live. We can make recommendations throughout the week. We've got a full lineup of speakers throughout the entire week, every day. And if you, again, can put in the comments, we'd love to hear where you're joining in from. We'd love to hear where folks are tuning in from. We are streaming across LinkedIn Live, the Fire Rescue TV Network, the High Performance EMS brands on Facebook, as well as the EMS Leadership Academy brands. So as well as YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, I'd like to bring in Dr. Victoria Reinhardt, who is a huge YouTube, I like to say like a mega star with the content that she's publishing and joining us from vacation as well. So Victoria, thanks again for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. I mean, I think we should have like bells and whistles for rock star, YouTube star, right? Some sort of big exciting thing. But really, I just have to say how excited I am to be here. It's my first time actually as part of the EMS Leadership Summit. So first time speaker. I know it's the 4th year that you guys have been doing this, and I've been a purchaser or a recipient of all the incredible knowledge in the last 3 years. And my first year speaking, and I don't know where we sign up, if that's what we're doing tonight, right? Signing up for next year. But I'm here for it. And as usual, just incredible speakers. So hi, everyone. Great first day.
Well, and we, the 5th annual next year, we're going to do, even more, I think. We've already said we're going to start planning in December. We're not going to wait till January to start, right? So welcome.
Robbie usually goes on vacation after this too, right?
Right. Usually I need a vacation. I need a really good vacation after.
Yeah, he usually does, but you're not this year, are you?
12 months of planning.
Yes.
No, not this year. But I'd also like to bring in the great Ray Barashansi. Ray, thanks for joining us tonight. Lots of buzz around your presentation today. We appreciate you being here.
I appreciate being here too. Much like Victoria, and unlike Chris, this is my first leadership summit as well, and I want to tell you how impressed I am with everything thus far. Great speakers, really great interaction, and just an amazing energy to your entire event. Just happy to be a part of it. I will say I'd love to be a part of it again next year, but I don't want to steal a page from Chris's book. So I'll just say I'm happy to be here this year and hopeful to be back next year.
Well, this year we had over 40 different speakers. Historically, we had 30 speakers. I wonder if we're going to hit like the 50 speaker mark, but I don't know.
We may have to do 6 days.
You'll have to add another day then, Robbie.
Have to add another day.
That's right.
Yeah. So
the first year was only 3 days.
Right.
And we had 10 speakers each day, and we were like, okay, that's too many. So this year it's been awesome, and we've been getting comments from folks on all the presentations this year. So that says something too, that people are really interacting. And that's one of the things we encourage people to do. As you watch, every page has an opportunity for comments, and they come right back to us. And, we are able to share those with the presenters. So if you are watching us now, we'd love to hear where you're from and take your questions for our panelists. And what are the challenges that you're facing in your organizations? How can we help? We're here to serve. So
I'm sorry, Lisa, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I do have a question I want to ask Ray, and I kind of said it last night, and I every time I have the opportunity to be on anything with Ray, I always point out the fact of where Ray has gone in his career, right? And Ray was a great paramedic in Newark, maybe he was a good paramedic in Newark, but then he rose to the heights of, an EMS state director, and, he became the Deputy Secretary of Health for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I mean, and it gives me as a paramedic that there are no closed doors, right? It is an opportunity. And maybe while people are thinking about the questions that they want to share, as we think about leadership development and our growth, Ray, maybe you can give us a little bit of some tips, because there are people out there who are saying, where do I go in my career? And as people are thinking about the questions for us, maybe you could give them some tips on how do you grow in your career? How do you get to those, those high level positions, and what's the secret?
So first, I have to say thank you. I'm tremendously complimented. Thanks, Chris. And I have to tell you that there are people who I looked at and said, wow, they really did it. People like Ed Gabriel, who worked for New York City, then went to Walt Disney, and then worked for the federal government. People like Rich Serino, who also Boston EMS for a long time. Then he went to go work for FEMA. And people like Greg Margolis, worked for National Registry, got himself a PhD. He works for the National Academies now. And you see this kind of consistency with people where they had that drive and they really said to themselves, I'm not going to limit myself. I'm not going to say there's something I can't do. I would actually tell people, get educated too. I would tell you that one of the biggest keys in the lock of success for me was my education. Yes, it took me about 7 years to finish a bachelor's degree. Most people would be called doctor by then. But then I right away went for my master's in public health. Later, I picked up another master's degree in Homeland Security Studies. But that education is really important. Also, don't limit yourself geographically. Sometimes you're going to have to move for another position that's the next step up. I realize that's not really palatable to some people, but that is kind of a reality. And so I would say that I don't think that there's any template approach to getting ahead in regard to the way you just put it, Chris. But I would say don't limit yourself in regard to the positions that you're looking at. Educate yourself. That bachelor's degree, a master's degree, other certifications, they go a long way. And then don't limit yourself in regard to geography. One other thing, and it's of exceptional importance, find yourself a mentor or mentors. Mm-hmm. There are people out there who've done it, and they've had to go through the tough spots, and they've had to walk across the snow that nobody's walked across before. Find them. Ask them how they did it. They can help you.
Yeah, and I want to bring Victoria in here because your presentation is all about, education and accreditation and really raising the level of professionalism. Maybe you could talk a little bit about your presentation and your experience.
Absolutely. Well, I have to just also say, Ray, you know, as you're mentioning some of those names of your mentors and things, and you're talking about how do people develop themselves and get to the next level and seek out education and doing so, you know, I'm laughing because I'm thinking about your mentors, my mentors, and I'm guessing Chris and Robbie and Lisa as well. A lot of these individuals who have reached these levels in their career where we all aspire to be, most of them probably don't like to hear, you know, you can't do that. And have taken it upon themselves to say, just because nobody else has done it doesn't mean I can't do it, right? Mm. And when we think about my area of expertise, which happens to be mobile integrated health and community paramedicine, and helping teams within EMS partner with other healthcare professionals to really meet the needs of their community, you know, that's what that's all about, is figuring out, just because it's not in existence right now, or that's not a program that's bringing in revenue yet, doesn't mean we can't create it, doesn't mean we can't develop it, doesn't mean we can't network to figure out how we do that. So nobody's going to tell me I can't do that or that it can't be done. We have to figure out a way to seek out the education and the knowledge necessary to do so, right? In another thing that I talk about is, you know, what can come from embracing the unknown, and embracing additional education is just so powerful, right? My big thing is you got to say yes, and then kind of put your money where your mouth is, right? You got to get involved in things, start showing up, start doing the work, and donating your time around where your passion is. So if there is, you know, an area of the industry that is of interest to you, or if there's a why behind, you know, what you want to accomplish or where you want to be, whether it's in public health or leadership on a state or national level, then start getting involved with organizations where those missions align with that type of work, and start pitching in and helping and saying yes to opportunities, whether that's volunteer or not. And what you'll find is education is the thing that nobody else can take away from you. And right. It will really empower you to find a fulfilling career. And so I just love that.
That's great. That's great. I love that you're talking about this idea of it's education, it's learning. You know, leadership is not a destination, it's a journey. We've all, like, I'm a huge fan of leadership, and the more I learn, the more I realize there's so much more to learn. Yeah. Whether it's in the areas of mobile integrated health, social work, emergency preparedness, watching Ray's talk about the last 30 years. I mean, it's scary that we aren't more prepared for in pandemic preparedness and public health. But Victoria, to your point, you know, you got involved in this very niche. You could have gone and became a pharmacist in retail. You could have gone in many different ways, and you are working in multiple areas of mobile integrated health. And one is, I'm just going to bring up on the screen here, is CAMS and the recent accreditation standards. We're talking about education, but there's also accreditation that organizations can achieve.
Yes, so for the first time ever, we now have the Mobile Integrated Health Accreditation Standards published. That occurred this year in 2022, and CAMS was incredibly, you know, incredibly thoughtful in how they tackled this huge project, you know, to develop these types of standards for the very diverse set of mobile integrated health and paramedicine teams that exist around the country is a huge undertaking. And they, you know, really put together a broad team of experts and figured out, you know, how do we do this and make this achievable for, you know, addiction programs or falls programs or programs that are focused on, you know, behavioral health or social work needs, food insecurities, right? There's 1,000,001 different needs all across, you know, the 50 states here in the US, of where EMS is stepping up and breaking down the silos, right, Chris? That's what right. This is all about, is how do we take those silos of EMS and those silos of healthcare and break them down. And so to create an accreditation process that allowed these teams to, really have a best practice to refer to and a way to, kind of validate the quality and safety of the different types of programs that they have was so important, and really felt like it was a huge step forward for the entire industry as we start to elevate EMS to that level of respect that EMS clinicians deserve and open up the doors for revenue opportunities and partnerships within the healthcare system.
Oh, man, that's awesome. Just awesome. I'm so inspired right now. I almost feel speechless, really.
It is really exciting, Lisa. So I think a lot of us in the industry feel that. And, listening to the lectures today about the different leadership styles, the lecture today on communication strategies and how to advocate for your teams and for your programs and for the type of work you're doing. And going back to what Chris is saying, the goal here of breaking down all of those silos. So it is really inspiring to figure out how do we do that and then validate it.
Well, it seems to me, and I'm not in EMS other than in the EMS Leadership Summit. I mean, I feel like I am. I'm not a paramedic or an EMT, but I've been swimming in this world for 12 or so years. So I guess I shouldn't say I'm not in EMS. I'm in EMS in the capacity that I am, but it feels like we're at such a what's the word? A crossroads, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many possibilities right now, and that was our hope in putting this year's summit together, and our themes of advocacy and inspiration and innovation, because when you come to a crossroads, one place to look is, oh crap, and get overwhelmed by everything, or to look at it and be like, okay, what's next? And I feel like every single speaker, every presentation that we've had on the lineup this year is all about facing forward and future focused and what's next and what can we learn from the best of EMS and moving forward. And I'm just thrilled right now.
I think that one of the things that we forget is you hear that all the time, opportunity only knocks once, but if opportunity is going to knock, are you prepared to answer the door? And one of the things that I talk with my coaching clients all the time about is the vision of where you want to be in your career, the vision where you want to be in your life has to be able to be developed with opportunity. And EMS needs to realize that we need to develop opportunity as well. And when we talk about where we were, in the community paramedicine world, as Victoria was saying, we now need to be able to have moved this forward more than we did. I mean, the first EMS or the community paramedic programs started to come up in 2007s and 2008s. We're in 2022. And, when we talk about reimbursement, just now we're starting to get the payers to come on board and say, let's pay you for this service. I have the opportunity to run one of the largest pilots in the United States with 8 states and 30 EMS systems now, where a payer is now paying for community paramedicine home visits. Well, it was the opportunity that we had to find to make that happen. And, we are reactionary in EMS, and we've got to learn to be anticipatory in EMS. And we've got to be able to now to go out and find the ways to bring our systems to where they need to be. You read the news every day about who's closing and who's getting fined and who can't cover response times and we've got to fix that. And it really starts with good, solid leadership. And I think that that's why developing the skills, knowledge, and abilities that you're trying to give us here will give us that best opportunity to be anticipatory.
Yeah, it's really great. Really well said.
What is that? What's that equation? Success occurs when preparation meets opportunity. And so, if you're here today, if you've been listening to these lectures so far in the EMS Leadership Summit, then you're working on that first part, which is preparation, because again, it goes back to educating yourself and preparing yourself. And Ray, your lecture today talks so much about learning about the lessons of the past, right? And look at public health and how, it was these lessons around H1N1 and those sorts of things that allowed EMS to prepare when we had the opportunity to really step forth in this recent pandemic to demonstrate that we are the solution that the public health response needed.
That's a great point. My concern right now is really that we're going to miss the opportunity to capitalize on our response to COVID. So yeah, during H1N1, during SARS, during Ebola, we learned lessons from each one of these public health emergencies, and we learned what EMS can really do, and EMS can do so much. But here we are coming kind of at the end of COVID, I'm hopeful, and I'm really concerned that we're not going to seize the day, that we're not going to take those areas that we've managed to fill and do something with it. And we're not going to capitalize on it. It really worries me. And I'm a student of EMS and public health interaction. And from what I see, we need to take this moment and really have our leadership drive forward and say, we filled all these gaps in the public health system during an emergency. We need to codify that. We need to fund that. We need to step forward proactively with that.
Absolutely. And I think that's, I wish Asbel could be with us tonight, because his session is really about how to advocate, how to move forward, and how to have those conversations. And, there are other sessions this week on advocacy as well. But, I think you're right. I think seizing that opportunity is about, in some degree anyway, standing up, acknowledging it, and pressing forward. And like you said, codifying it. Not just assuming that it's going to be seen that way in the future.
It very much. Go ahead, Chris.
No, Ray, please.
It very much worries me that it will be seen as, oh, EMS will just get that done, like they did during SARS, like they did during H1N1, and like they did during Ebola. But we can't rely on that. In addition, the federal government has really had I call it a disease du jour funding scheme, where they do have public health preparedness. They have Sept funds and HPP funds, Hospital Preparedness Program and Public Health Emergency Preparedness. And what they've done is take discrete amounts of money for the emergencies that come up. But that doesn't really do anything for public health infrastructure. And it certainly doesn't do anything to fund the EMS component of public health emergency response. And we have to move away from the disease du jour funding. We have to move toward a much better funding mechanism, and EMS has to be considered in that funding mechanism.
Yeah. And one of the things that I was going to bring up was that we have to stop doing things with tradition, right? The way that we do the things that we need to do is based on what we've done in the past, as you've talked about, and we have to be able to learn from that. We've got to get out of that, right? We've got to now start to develop, a business mentality. We now got to start to develop a public health mentality. We now have to start to think about what EMS of the future is going to look like. I mean, we went ahead and sold EMS on, 2 paramedics sitting in a truck and a response time of 8 minutes and 59 seconds 35 years ago. Now we can say, why can't we put two EMTs in a truck and put a community paramedic or put a paramedic in a chase vehicle and then let them respond to the calls that are truly emergencies? We need to move ourselves. And actually, Chris Montera said this first, and he said, we're eventually going to be community health agencies that sometimes has to do ambulance calls. And we really have to start to think about it and move out of what the past was really kind of setting up for us, because that's all we remember. That's all that we're doing. And we have to stop that.
Well said. And Ray, I know you've got to jump off on this call. So any final remarks that you'd like to make for the summit this year?
I think my final remark is get out there and figure out who runs public health in your area. It doesn't matter if it's a municipality. It doesn't matter if it's a city. It doesn't matter if it's a region, a county, etc. Get out there and figure out who's running it. If you don't know who's running it, you've already failed. Once you figure out who's running it, develop a relationship. That relationship can be as simple as a cup of coffee or a tuna sandwich at the local diner. Get it done, because if you don't, nobody is going to. And then the next emergency, you're just going to be relearning everybody's capability and capacity and reforming those relationships.
That's great.
Certainly wise words. Ray, thanks for joining us on the Daily Debrief. We appreciate your time. And folks, check out Ray's session, Pandemics Are a Team Sport Today, the vital role of EMS in public health emergencies. It's up for another 15 hours or so. And if you've got an all access pass, you've got lifetime access to that. So Ray, thanks again for being here.
Thank you
for
so much,
having me.
Ray.
Thanks.
So, I would love to take a quick pause here, a little intermission, Chris and Victoria, if we could, and come back. When we come back, I'd like to talk about EMS's infrastructure. Ray he dropped that word infrastructure, and I really feel like part of the future of EMS, politicians understand building infrastructure, and maybe there's a way we can get them to also consider EMS's infrastructure. So we'll be right back, Chris and Dr. Victoria Reinhardt, in just a moment. So Lisa, I think we should just go through the lineup of today's speakers. We do want to make sure we mention all of them.
Absolutely. And we also want to make sure to keep thanking our sponsors. You'll see them listed on the daily page, but also in our virtual exhibit hall. So do you want to go over the speakers first or the sponsors?
First, I just want to point people, if you're looking for any sessions, visit emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit. You can see all the free sessions here under free pass. If you want to upgrade and get lifetime access to all the sessions, it's an all access pass. And to see a complete PDF, the playbook, where we've had a lot of speakers add some additional content that's grown to over 25 pages, I think. And we're continuing to update the link, so you'll get the latest and greatest information added. Shout out to our friends at FirstNet, the FirstNet Authority. They have done a great job here. We see all the rapid deployables for if there are emergencies in your communities, and by the numbers, how many public safety agencies and organizations their subscriber base has grown, and connections and their advanced coverage, especially with the Band 14 completion and implementation, as well as their ROG, the Response Operations Group's therapy dog. Now they have over 30 therapy dogs out there in the US. So check out FirstNet by AT&T. There's information here if you want to follow up with our sponsors about enrolling your agency into those and learning more. There's a whole host of information here with the FirstNet group.
Yeah, each of the exhibitor hall booths, when you click on them, you can see additional information, downloadable PDFs in many cases, as we already talked about. Wayfound has some discounts here, as well as an opportunity to win a grand prize, which we'll be giving away on Saturday. So go to that booth, fill in your name. Sherry Hewson is also one of our presenters. She does an amazing talk on how do you really know which app to use. There's so many apps out there, purporting themselves as helpful in the mental health space. And how do you know? And she just does a wonderful overview of that. They have a research-based. Very research-based their work. So
the Before Operational Stress Program. If you are a Canadian citizen in the public health field in Canada, you can actually get access to those resources at no charge. So we'll have information on there. And with the exchange rates, it's almost actually 50% off if you do the Canadian to US exchange rate for the Before Operational Stress Program. So thanks to the Wayfound Mental Health Group, as well as our friends at Ninth Brain, bringing all sorts of solutions into one unified dashboard and one kind of enterprise resource planning tool for continuous improvement, scheduling, and risk management, as well as so many other offerings. And you can reach out to Bradley if you're interested in learning more about the solutions of Ninth Brain.
And one of the things that's so cool about Ninth Brain is that they are looking for how do you help leaders get out of the business of doing this kind of, what's the word I want? Like busy work, right? And just finding solutions, one simplified solution, right? I mean, who doesn't want that to help you really use your time in other areas? And so definitely check out their booth, set up a time to meet with them and learn more about what they offer.
Shout out to the Resuscitation Academy and Citizen CPR Foundation, bringing together amazing resources for organizations to be leaders in your community on resuscitation. They've co-branded a booth together with a lot of resources. We have the folks at Binderlift, It's Rick Binder and his organization have put together a free field trial for anyone that wants to get their hands on this device. And I've said it before, but once you realize that you never have to lift under somebody's dirty armpits again, you'll never want to lift the way you used to. Reducing injuries makes it much more comfortable for the patient. Check out and follow up with the folks at Binder Lift. And they're really going into a lot of injury prevention education as well in the future.
Yeah, it's really cool. They're talking, people movers, right? Like, how do you help move people in ways that are safe and effective, right, for the patient, but also the provider, so that you're not having to go out on with a back injury or something of that sort.
We've got a lot of other folks here. Emergency Responder Safety Institute, Responder Safety. They've an entire landing page of free resources put together. It's a great nonprofit that is leading the charge in safety on the roadway incidents, and they're tracking struck by incidents every day. And it's astounding the work that they're doing. They've put together an entire page that'll link off of this booth with additional resources. No matter where you are in your organization, there's a resource for you to improve the health and safety of organizations of first responders.
And I want to mention our Lunch and Learn on Friday. We're hosting a Lunch and Learn Friday afternoon, noon Eastern, or wherever you are. You join us and register. You will get a virtual lunch from us from Grubhub. You'll get a $15 gift certificate, a voucher for coming to the session, but hopefully you'll come for the food. You'll stay for the information. We're going to be talking about communication and the mindset of a leader that leads to people wanting to stay at your organization. So we'll be diving as deeply as we can in an hour to really talk about what is the mindset of a leader. It kind of goes back to what Chris was talking about a few minutes ago, is really letting go of those constraints of the past, of what leadership is supposed to look like, and really reinventing yourself and allowing yourself to be the kind of leaders that people want to follow. And we're going to spend an hour just talking about and really helping people to see some blind spots, and could be a life changer, this session. I mean, that's the intention. That's what I'm putting together, or what we're putting together, our content, to really be a life changer.
I want to thank Martin at Fire Rescue TV. This daily debrief is live streaming through over 450 fire and EMS stations throughout the country right now, thanks to his platform, and his organization is growing. So if you want information on the Fire Rescue TV digital signage and information systems for your stations, check it out. Martin, we appreciate your partnership. Last but not least, Honorable But Broken, EMS in Crisis. We have a trailer here from, and this week, actually, Bryony and Richard, the co-producers of this advocacy film project, are talking about where this started and where it's going. But certainly we have letters that if you'd like to send to your national organizations asking them to fill the funding gap, you'd like to make a direct contribution. And they're crowdfunding this campaign, but they're really highlighting how broken the EMS system is in America, and getting politicians on board with methods to fix it. And I guess with that, we'll go ahead and bring our speakers back on, because we want to talk about how do we fix, a system overall, and can EMS be seen as infrastructure, I guess would be the question. So let me see if I can do this and bring Chris back in, and Dr. Victoria Reinhardt's back in. Thanks again for waiting with us, for being here on tonight on this debrief. And Ray mentioned it before the break. We talked about, how do we seize the opportunity and not let this go by? How do we get EMS seen as infrastructure? So,
I think everything we're talking about here today, it's all about education. One of the challenges I think we have is our lawmakers like to listen, but they don't like to do anything about it once they hear us, right? And we do have EMS on the Hill Day, where we get to flood EMS, flood Capitol Hill with EMS providers and EMS leaders. But really, we have to be able to have something done that is going to allow us to really be seen as an essential service. I mean, for years, when you have agencies that have to do fish fries so they can get enough money to fill the apparatus so they can run their next calls, that's a problem. And one of the big challenges is that we've been doing it this way for so many years that nobody sees that there is a challenge when it comes to what EMS is doing. And unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is we're going to lose a lot more EMS systems because they can't, they can't fund payroll, because they can't buy the equipment that they need, because they don't have the support that they need in the communities before someone is going to stand up and say, how did this happen? But it has to start with education, and we've got to be able to be louder than we've ever been before. And I think that that's where that has to start.
Yeah. And Victoria, maybe you could chime in, even if it's not talking to the elected officials, it's talking to the decision makers, the hospital systems, getting people to see the value in what we do, especially with community paramedicine and mobile integrated health.
Yeah, that was going to be my perspective is, I'm not an EMS either, technically, right? I'm a pharmacist by training. And I think that it goes a long way to speak to others in healthcare. If you count on your hands, how many nurses do you know, or how many others in healthcare, whether they're in EMS or not? And I bet if you told them, when you're cooking dinner, if you slice your hand open and you're bleeding out, you better not need to call 911 because they might not come. Their minds are going to be blown, right? Because so few people outside of this industry really have any kind of idea just how dire the situation is and how many of these teams are struggling to make payroll every single month, like Chris is mentioning. And so, it really is that there's a huge lack of awareness elsewhere in healthcare as well. And especially if you can highlight how partnership can save them money on the dollar and improve patient outcomes and improve patient satisfaction when we figure out how to successfully partner EMS and fire-based professionals with other healthcare providers and other parts of the healthcare system. You show them that return on, rate of return that they can get, and they're going to start to get interested. And so when you combine those factors, the level of awareness and advocacy is just incredible. And while we hate to see on Facebook or on LinkedIn or social media where somebody says, I called 911 and there was nobody to take my call, I, in turn, as tragic as that is, I love to see something like that go viral, because there needs to be that much more awareness with other healthcare providers, with the general public, other people that can help advocate for us as well.
And what we need is a wake-up call. And, I'm looking at the comments here, and Rob Lawrence is in an airport lounge, but he is on this week talking about, how the nation, how national organizations in EMS can coordinate and collaborate their communications. Mark Tenia, Alexia Jobson from REMSA, Rob Lawrence have a traveling roadshow talking about how are we communicating with the press, with the media, in order to tell our message. I mean, we've got examples in the Exhibitor Hall of Bryony, the producer of the EMS in Crisis documentary. Again, just another example of hopefully an advocacy piece that will start conversations for elected officials.
And if I could just throw in a little shout out to Rob Lawrence, our international correspondent on the Inside EMS podcast, and he's got his own podcast now, the EMS One Stop on EMS One. If you're not a fan, you need to be. But if you have the opportunity, and really you should, check out Rob's class. When we start to think about the work that's being done at the national level, I mean, our friend here is really starting to pave the way for us to understand how we get, we talk about EMS infrastructure and how are we going to get involved. We have to be able to support our associations and organizations because they have a voice for us. And the more power that we can put into them, the more that we're able to really have somebody that's on our side to really kind of step in for us. And if you have that opportunity, a shout out to Rob Lawrence, check out his show, EMS One Stop. Go ahead and check out his class. And he really is giving us the tools that we need to understand how we can have better advocacy from our organizations and associations. And so cheers to my friend.
Thanks, Rob, for chiming in out there. We certainly appreciate you and your team being part of this lineup. folks, there are a lot of topics on advocacy this week. Heather Scher and Don Doremus from the Ambulance Association of Pennsylvania, the remarkable work they did this legislative session, bringing $85 million of direct funding into EMS organizations.
Yeah.
I believe it was doubling, if not tripling, the Medicaid rate for reimbursement for ambulance services. As Maggie Adams pointed out, she's one of their board members, I believe. This is what other states have done. They've doubled and tripled their Medicaid reimbursement rates so that they do not become the loss leader for EMS organizations, and they're not driven into the ground.
And one thing I would just say too is like this building of relationships and looking outside your own organization. I mean, this is a common theme we've been talking about, right? Is really being willing to not know, but look and see who does know, or look and see. It's not to discount your own knowledge, but to sort of get back past your own thinking constraints, right? Yeah. And I think that's so important. I mean, Chris, earlier you were talking about how Ray went beyond what maybe most people would think is possible, right? It's because he didn't, at least it looked to me, like he didn't stop by, oh, nobody's ever done that before, or it's not possible. And I think the same is true here, is like there are a lot of people doing really great work, like the Pennsylvania folks you were just mentioning about, talking about, and learning from each other and saying, wow, if they could do it, we could do it, right? Or how can we even expand on that? And I just also want to underline what you said about associations, right? There's power in numbers, and getting involved at that level, whether it's financially by joining or volunteering for these associations, that's really, I think, a critical component of becoming an infrastructure and being seen as a force to be reckoned with in a different way.
Yeah. I always said, and I've said for a lot of years, if we consider ourselves to be professionals, we have to belong to a professional organization. And being able to do that, to have our voice heard, and just to be part of something bigger. But that goes into the whole story, man. Is EMS a career field, or is EMS a stepping stone, right? Well, it could be both. It could be a career field and it could be a stepping stone, but don't waste your time while you're here. Learn about research, learn about community paramedicine, learn about CQI, learn about instruction and education, learn about how to develop whatever that is. Because when you go to wherever you're going next, it's that experience that you're going to take with you that's going to allow you to grow. I don't hire you for what you've done in the past. I hire you for what you're going to do for me in the future. And you have to be able to take all that experience and move that into what the future is going to look like, because I'm hiring you to reach the vision of the organization. I hire you to help me to develop the goals that'll help me reach the vision of the organization. And we've got to be able to be on that spot that helps us do that. And I don't know how I got here. I think I lost my train of thought. I'm gonna stop right there. Victoria, save me, please.
No, I was just thinking. I was like, oh, I like the turn that this went. It's always the things that are not in the job description. That's what I want to hear about, and that's what that's where I'm going to decide as a leader how I can help empower you and figure out what you're passionate about and help you achieve your own goals. So, is EMS a stepping stone, or is it a career? We lose way too many of our EMS professionals that are so incredibly high potential and high performing and motivated and energized, and they want to soak it all in and learn as much as they can. We lose them to other professions. I say all the time, I have so many pharmacist interns that come to me through their doctoral program who were EMTs. And they realized, that the medications were a big issue, or that patients were falling through the cracks of the healthcare system, and they wanted to be that community resource for them, but in a higher career opportunity, right? Or, how many physicians started out as medics or EMTs, and so we lose all of these high potential individuals to these other careers, and the other careers benefit from them, But there's so much opportunity here to create infrastructure in EMS, create infrastructure in the education system within EMS, and, really help to solve the problems in our healthcare communities, utilizing our own personnel as we invest in them.
Well, I would just say that I agree with everything you both have said. And I think there's when you said, Chris, it could be both, because I own a consulting and coaching company where I coach businesses, all different kinds of organizations, not just businesses. It is rare for someone to stay in a position for 30 years, 20 years anymore. It isn't happening. And so even people, let's say in sales, they may start, in sales at a position there, that's a stepping stone to sell something else, to grow their capacity. So it's not as if it's unique to EMS that people use a job as a stepping stone, right? So I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I also think it can be a way for us to notice, like, okay, what are we not doing? And what could we do better so that people maybe don't leave as fast, like their hair's on fire, right?
Mhm.
like they leave as part of a plan, or
Right.
they're grateful to what they learned and want to encourage other people to come up, right?
Yeah.
But I just think that stepping stone is just the nature of how people work now. It's not the same as it used to be, where you worked one place or one career I've had 3 careers myself, and I'm happy about that
Sure.
because it all led to where I am today.
And it's all about education. It's all about growth. It's all about your vision. It's all about what you think. I mean, we're here. Did we think we would be here at this stage in our career? Right. Yeah, I'm still waiting to play center field for the New York Yankees. Right. No one's calling me. But but when we think about where we are, we've got to take advantages of where we are. There are a lot of people that are in the field of EMS that may feel stuck, or they may feel lost, or they may feel dread. But you know what? It really starts with the vision of where do you see yourself, and don't worry about your age, and don't worry about money, and don't worry about, just start with the vision and then make that happen. Have you ever wanted something so bad that nothing was going to get in your way? That's the desire. The desire has to be so hot that nothing will derail you. And it's not procrastination that I'm just a lazy person. It's that your vision isn't strong enough. Your desire isn't strong enough. And when you make that burn inside you, there is nothing that you cannot achieve. And I challenge people out there to make that happen for themselves. And it's places like this where we can learn some education, and we can learn some leadership and understand the tools. And as you gain, they say knowledge is power. No, I'm going to disagree with you. Knowledge isn't power if you don't use what you learn. That's what becomes the power.
Yeah, absolutely. It's applied knowledge. I think it's also, Angela Duckworth talks a lot about grit, and,
Right.
is it the IQ over the EQ? Is it your emotional intelligence? Is it your IQ? IQ doesn't really matter. It's not all about that. It's about your persistence, your grit, and you're wanting something so much that you'll do anything. You'll put the extra hours in. You'll be at a conference like this. You'll listen to some great folks that are sharing their past experiences and learn from them.
Well, I say all the time, and Robbie, you've heard me say it, if knowledge were enough, we'd all be rich and thin. Because you go on Google, it's the information age. There's nothing that no knowledge you can't get, right? It's not about knowledge. Knowledge, you need knowledge, right? But it's not, that's not that's one factor. It's really the worldview that you have, and the point of view, the what looks real to you at any given moment, right? If the barriers look real, that's that. But if you say, oh, that's a thought barrier, or, oh, that's someone else has figured out how to get past that, or someone else has figured out how to accomplish that, let me see, and I think that is every single one of us has that inside of us, and with no one left out. Everyone has it, whether or not you listen to it, right? It's like, I remember when Robbie said, hey, let's put a summit on. Let's, this was early 2019, because we did it in May the first time. And I was like, what now? What are we going to do?
This was Robbie's crazy idea back in, I think, 2015 or 16.
Yeah, the first time. But the thing that was so cool about it was, he kept talking to me about it. And I was all about us getting in front of people, because, we need to be the ones who are sharing our, transformational leadership possibilities. And then one day I'm like, what are you doing? And I just said to him, yes, let's figure it out. And we did. And, that's just one example of And again, I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back, because I was a no for a little while. I was like, Robbie,
I don't think start with no, Lisa.
Yeah.
But look
But
what happens when you said yes.
Exactly.
Right? Saying
Back
yes
to
to
your
those
point.
opportunities. And Robbie, a crazy idea, right? It was a crazy idea. And that's how my whole industry started, right? Is let's do this crazy idea where we put medics in this alternative role and figure out what we can make happen. And, you know, I think going back to that stepping stone right now, what I feel like I see is we have medics that are standing on the stones and they're spilling off and having to jump to other stones because of burnout and overwhelm and you know, lack of compensation that matches what they're putting into this. And you know, we look at it this way, that people use EMS as a stepping stone to another option. And Lisa, I really like your point about, you know, how do we figure out how to make the stepping stones worthwhile in our own industry? And Chris, you know, I think back to what you were saying, if you can seek out the education to, you know, give yourself a different perspective, to find new partners, whether in our industry or other industries, new mentors, then you can narrow down on that vision and that passion that you need and that desire of what you want enough to decide which stone you want to step to and not be forced out of it because of burnout or stress or overwhelm or not enough money to pay your bills, right? You get to choose which stone to step to. And I love that about all of the speakers through all of this week, is that they're all showing you kind of another little stone that you can step to depending on what your passion is.
Yeah, so well
that.
said. Thank you for that.
We are reaching the top of the hour. I could talk to all of you just for so much longer. I appreciate you both being here, being a part of the EMS Leadership Summit. Is there anything you'd like to just leave for final remarks with our audience? Again, we've got day one is not even halfway through, but any final remarks? And Chris, if you want to go first.
Yeah, mine always comes to your favorite quotes, right? And I always want to be able to share with people things that I think are inspiring. And the Dalai Lama has a great quote, and he says that when you speak, you are only repeating what you already heard. But when you listen, you may learn something new. Man, what a great week this is to learn something new and spend the time, listen to the speakers, but use some of the data, use some of the information to make things better in your realm. Add value to somebody every day. And after you watch these lectures and after you hear these words of wisdom, man, share that with the next person.
That's great. That's
Thank you,
great.
Chris.
We appreciate you, Chris. Thanks again for being here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I think my closing words for today would be, you know, relevant to my favorite quotes from Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, who were just two world leaders who did so much for the world and tackled a lot of impossible tasks. You know, it all seems impossible until it's done. So when we talk about change on a large scale, when we talk about change just internally in changing your everyday habits and seeking out new skills and education and opportunity to figure out what you want to do and how you want to develop yourself, all of that can really feel impossible. But we take it step by step, one bite of the elephant at a time, so to speak, right? How do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And it seems impossible until it's done. So yeah, if you have questions or interest in MIH and we're not yet connected, feel free to do so. I'm happy to be a resource for anybody.
Thank you so much, Victoria. It really has been a pleasure meeting you. And again, thank you for presenting and just
especially
amazing.
Thank you for joining in on your vacation to be here.
Yeah, on your
I love
vacation.
it. Anytime, of course. Thank you both.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Wow, what a great panel tonight. This is day one of the EMS Leadership Summit and our daily debrief. Folks, if you haven't already signed up for your free pass, be sure to check that out at emsleadershipsummit.com. You'll have an option to upgrade for the all access pass. Each day, free pass holders get 24 hours access to our brilliant speakers and their sessions. And if you want the all access pass, gives you lifetime access to all the speaker sessions, helps you develop your leadership library. I think one of our speakers put it so well. And Lisa, I think we want to just go through, maybe we can briefly go through any speakers we didn't talk about today. I'm going to bring that up on the screen.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. And then talk about what's on deck for tomorrow as well. We did not talk about Wendy Lund. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us tonight, but she does a really great presentation called COVID-19 and Mental Health. Shift Happens. And she really talks about a paradigm shift in terms of mental health and resilience. And her booth, there's a lot of wonderful materials there. She offers a lot of free resources on her website, as well as a few courses you can invest in. But I think she has something like 20 hours worth of free programs available. So
with
you
her Reach
can't,
for Resiliency program. Yeah.
yeah,
Science-based evidence on mindfulness practices.
and you can't, blame not having enough money to provide these this support to your people. I mean, as a leader, one of our favorite quotes is by Simon Sinek, who says, "Leadership is not about being in charge; it's about caring for those in your charge."
Absolutely.
And this is an awesome opportunity to do that by exposing your folks to these free resources that are science-based and easily accessible. So definitely check out Wendy. And then if you want to talk about Leon and Jenny's
Absolutely.
presentation.
It fascinates me that British Columbia's EHS, their Emergency Health Services System, a provincial-wide ambulance service, and providing, not only ambulance service, air medical, they are doing all sorts of things great and advancing the clinical pathways for paramedics in Canada, and specifically in the BC province. And they're an extremely busy system. It's fascinating to talk with their new and up and coming leaders. They're building out their leadership capacity to have less of a span of control, to be able to have more one-on-one conversations. We talk about the power of coaching as well, not only in this session, but Heather Edwards' session that is in the lineup with Dr. Angelo Caravaggio on day 5. But it's fascinating to see the passion that they all have, and them sharing how they're creating clinical pathways for paramedics in the BC system.
And then after that, we have Marcus Bush, who was with us last night, sharing about what he calls demonstrative leadership, which basically is, are you walking your talk, right? So many people talk about being a servant leader or some kind of style, but if you interview their people, they don't know what kind of style you have. They just know the impression you leave them with. And so in this presentation, Marcus really talks in a very practical way about how are you demonstrating the kind of leader that you are, and are you leaving the wake, so to speak, like the wake of a boat. Are you leaving that wake that you really want to? So a terrific presentation from a true leader.
And we're excited. He just announced that he's taking a new leadership position in a fire-based EMS organization. So we're thrilled to watch Marcus's journey and the great, the amazing leadership he does demonstrate in the organizations he's a part of.
And then Asbel, our pal, our friend, our buddy, he was our first-time speaker last year and made such a difference with his presentation. And we asked him to come back, and he was a big yes immediately. He was all in, and as busy as he is, and just having the opportunity to hear Asbel speak about advocacy is worth just your time and effort. And I would highly recommend watching it twice, one for information, twice for transformation. And then Victoria, who was on our panel tonight.
Absolutely an incredible resource and expert. You've got to check out her Mobile Integrated Health YouTube channel. She's got great resources on her background, again, as a pharmacist, but also a mobile integrated health expert, and really navigating the field of both pre-hospital and hospital care, especially when it comes to the organizations she is a part of, launching NAMI HP, a new nonprofit dedicated as a national association for mobile integrated health professionals. She's a part of the CAMS, the Commission on the Accreditation of Medical Transport Systems, and how they've designed the first draft of accreditation standards. And I love the idea of accreditation because it's a pathway you can follow. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and it will create better results. So folks, that is our day 1 lineup. Wow, what a Chris Ceballero's talk, breaking down the silos, Wendy's talk, Ray Barashansky's talk. Certainly day 1 was a fascinating time for folks that have tuned in. There's just about 12 or 13 hours to watch until 8 a.m. Eastern. And then we move on to day number 2 of tomorrow's sessions.
I just want to say one quick thing about Victoria. I recently started following her on LinkedIn. Oh my God, the information she shares is so helpful. So if nothing else, follow her on LinkedIn. I mean, she just has amazing, helpful tools on things you don't even know you need until you see them. So I'll start talking about day 2.
Great.
Again, feel free to download the PDF of the playbook, which has all the sessions, all the descriptions, and also some articles and great information from our sponsors. In the very first presentation tomorrow is Bryony Gilby and Rich Diefenbach, the Honorable but Broken, an independent documentary about the crisis in EMS. They also have a booth. They are putting together, they did a presentation on how the documentary came about, but it's going to be such a great tool. It's so many great things, right? I hate to just say it's just a great tool, but man, it's going to be a great tool, right? For people to see what's really happening and experience that.
And Lisa, they interview folks on the National Association of EMTs, medical directors, EMS providers, and we recently sent a mailer out to all the New York State EMS organizations, actually about 2 weeks ago, just calling on EMS organizations to rally together towards this great advocacy project. So check out their virtual exhibitor booth as well. You can see the trailer. There's unseen footage from the late John Mandela's mother. And she just shares, her emotional journey from a paramedic in New York City that killed himself during the pandemic. And it's just such a sad story that we have systems that, do not set providers up to deal with the mental health resources that they're going to need and that they're going to face. With COVID, the last couple of years has seemed like 20 years, and it has had an impact on people. So we're glad that she's sharing her story about her son. We hope organizations will use the letter that's in the booth and call on national associations to fund this project, to get this out there and to raise awareness and advocate.
Yeah. Then after her, we have John Puryear. And by the way, you don't have to watch these in order, right? They're all released at 8 a.m. But we just list them the way we do. John Puryear, who joined us last night, he is talking about communication skills that are imperative for leaders. And he is speaking our language. We are all about communication and leadership, not all about, but that's one of our primary focuses as well. And he does a great job just really sharing how, as a leader with a lot of experience and what he's learned along the way. And he reminds us that, to stick to the basics. And, we all need that kind of refresher to be effective.
And John is an innovator. He does online education for, your national registry education and continuing education, recertification. And he is certainly a leader in online education. So we appreciate him. Justin Reed, his presentation, he is such a sharp leader. And I'm so thrilled that we were introduced to Justin out of Texas and talking about psychological safety. Lisa, you and I had a chance with Dr. David Daniels to have conversations and a roundtable discussion on psychological safety. And I'm glad that he was able to record this session for our viewers.
Yeah, I interviewed him for this, and it does not disappoint. I'll tell you, he shares his journey, and he doesn't hold back, and he just shares what it's like. But the amazing progress he has made in an organization, and he's someone who came in from the outside of this organization. He didn't rise through the ranks. He actually was brought in from outside, and he talks about what it took, and it's really a very powerful story. And then how about if you talk about the EMS PAC, Walter Adler and the EMS PAC?
You want to talk about leading at every level? These folks are breaking down silos across delivery methods in New York City. And whether you're a part of a commercial ambulance service, a hospital-based system, a municipal system, a private nonprofit, you're a volunteer in the city, and part of one of those services, the EMS PAC is supporting their colleagues when they're in crisis. They are creating support networks. They raised $500,000 in direct funding as a nonprofit to direct that funding back to injured providers and folks facing hardships. So the structures they've created, we always say structures produce results, and they have certainly produced a lot of great results. And they're talking about how do you advocate using, and they want to push an EMS Bill of Rights for working conditions. They want to help labor organizations unify. And, they are a committed group of people out to make a difference in the lives of EMS providers in New York City and beyond. They're taking their model and going well beyond that.
And they are a great model. I'm really a great model for how to get things done. So, and then after that, you spoke with Alexandra.
Yes, Alexandra Jabber, paramedic, and she had ended up getting a master's degree in death notifications and dealing with these tough topics of death. And it's a topic that we're expected to handle, yet we're not really trained on how to have those challenging conversations across the whole healthcare spectrum. And she is on a mission to help EMS providers have those challenging conversations in some of those difficult situations.
One other thing I would just like to say, because I think it's been a theme last night and today, if you notice, she has this niche, right? It's like she found an area that isn't being addressed, and she took it on, and she learned what she needed to learn, and then now she's sharing it. Anybody can do that. Any one of us can do that. You and I, it was leadership. We saw that, training and leadership was missing. And so we started to use our expertise and develop ourselves as leaders. And so many of our presenters are just a demonstration of what's possible when you take a topic or you see a missing, and instead of complaining about it and lamenting about it, do something about it, right? Like find a need and fill it. And I was just so inspired by her and so many of the presentations of how people do that. I mean, Wendy, Lund, everybody.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Rick Reppenthal from actually Vancouver Island, I found out, which is close to Heather Edward, and they're recording in the BC system. But Rick was a 30-year veteran of an EMS system in BC. And so it's so interesting, such a small world. He is a coach in retirement, but he is a coach, and he has the Unbroken Hero project as well. So we are excited to feature him and share his vast amount of experience.
Yeah, Rick and I have a lot in common. We've studied under some of the same teachers, and it was a really interesting conversation that we had together about how do you see resilience in the system, right? Not just looking for what's wrong, but looking for the resilience. And I think it's going to be enlightening for a lot of people to hear that conversation.
Yeah, if we need anything now, it's resiliency building and more capacity building in our systems. Maggie Adams, she's a brilliant person that talks about financial reimbursement and helping leaders. How do we educate? EMS documentation today is not the same as it was even 10 years ago. And she is brilliant when it comes to systems improvement, operational improvement, making sure that you're getting paid for the services that you should be getting paid for and reimbursed for, because we all know, CMS is reimbursing well below the cost of care. So we need to make sure that if you're getting reimbursed for care, that it's being done accurately and well. So we thank Maggie Adams for bringing her excitement and her enthusiasm into this topic of common mistakes for crews and how they can document better.
And I love how she connects the dots between the documenting and the reimbursement and the more money, right? Because, what's the number one problem that most services and organizations are facing besides recruitment and retention is money. And in her talk, she really breaks it down to what you can do. And it's amazing. And so grateful for her expertise and sharing that.
Well, folks, this is the day lineup for tomorrow. Today, you still have a full session of speakers that you can watch. We want to encourage you, if you haven't grabbed your all access pass or your free pass, you can grab that. EMSleadershipsummit.com. You can upgrade to an all access pass, which gives you CME credits. It gives you MP3 audios of all the sessions. It gives you lifetime access to your library of speaker sessions. And check out our exhibitor hall. We've got a lunch and learn on Friday, where we'll be excited to see your faces there. We have a grand prize drawing in the exhibitor hall in the Wayfound booth. So it's an exciting week. This is only day one.
Only day one, and we're going to be back every day at the end of the sessions at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And so please join us and bring your questions or aha moments. People have been sharing them within the what am I trying to say, program, sharing their comments, but we'd love to hear from you, tomorrow at the debrief. Bring anything you want to share or any questions that you have. We'd love
And
to
share with your colleagues too, right? Share this great opportunity with your organization. There's still plenty of time to sign up. We have over 40 speakers this year sharing their knowledge, their brilliance about how to advocate, innovate, and inspire for the future of EMS. And that's what this is all about.
Absolutely. And yeah, share it. We would appreciate that. And they're going to appreciate it because, I mean, how often do you get access to over 40 speakers? And last night Chris called it murderer's row because these are well-known speakers who are sought after at all the conferences, and they're coming to you free of charge. And so take advantage and share with all your friends.
Yeah, because people will, what is the phrase, that people will always do more when they feel appreciated. And if you can share your appreciation with folks about this event and how much you think this will help them in your organization, I think it's going to be a win-win. So folks, thanks for tuning in tonight. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow with a whole nother lineup of speakers live, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.